Insurance is this week's module, and you'll see that in the PowerPoint you didn't have a voiceover. That's because there's a lot of information on each slide, and there wasn't much for me to add to each slide. So it is a lot of reading, unfortunately, for this module. A couple of things that we want to hit highlights on is with insurance, you do have three basic types. There's life insurance, health insurance, and different forms of property insurance. Insurance is one of those things that you don't want to pay for and you don't think you need it until it's too late. By the time you get in an accident or have something happen, you can't go back and reverse it, and you're going to wish you had gotten insurance. So even though it might cost money now, a lot of times it's good to think about these things. Life insurance is one that if you're in college, you're not married, if you die, and it's probably going to be a very big fluke if something does happen, there's not people that are going to be devastated from that. But let's say, I'm in my mid-30s and I have a wife and 2 kids. I do need to think about this, because if my wife stays home with her kids and we have a mortgage and other expenses and she doesn't have the ability to go to work and make money, they're going to lose everything if I die and there's no sort of life insurance or other different things set in place for them. A lot of times, certain companies, you might even check the company that you're about to interview with or you already have a job with. I know when I worked for BB&T, they included life insurance as a perk. It was double my annual salary, and they went ahead and paid it, and because I was young and in good shape, it was like $2 every paycheck. So it was a cheap way for them to add extra benefit for me. So I never took it, but the company went ahead and took care of this for me. It might be something you want to look into, because it might be $1 or $2 a paycheck, but you might never need it. But the time that something did happen and you did need it, it's one of those things that you can't replace. It's going to be too late. Health insurance is a big one that everyone's probably going to have to deal with. Depending on, these change a lot. But right now, most companies that you work with are going to have, it's group health insurance. And when you look at the quotes that you're going to do for this exercise, you're going to be really happy that you have that. Because people that have to get it on their own, it costs a lot more than the group prices. So if your company has one of the major health insurance companies as a group plan, you might not even see the cost because you might not have to pay for it. Your company might pay for it. Or you might pay the monthly premium and think it's high until you go and look for making it on your own without that group policy. So health insurance is one that you're probably all going to have to deal with. I know when I first got my job right out of college, they ask you to pick a health insurance plan. Even with a company, I had 3 different choices, and all of them had different variances. So those are things you're going to want to look through, and you might want to keep this PowerPoint just to say what's the difference between a PPO and an HMO and some of these other options. I know when I went out, I had no idea. I just picked the cheapest one. For me, it worked out. But if you have a family or other things, you might want to consider what all the choices are. If you go to the doctor a lot, it might be important for you to have a small deductible versus a huge deductible. Usually the smaller the deductible, the higher the monthly premium is. So you kind of need to look at how often do I go to the doctor? What's the likelihood that something's going to happen? One of the big things that's out right now is that a lot of health companies are no longer offering maternity. So they're not offering you anything that has to do with pregnancy. That's a huge expense out of pocket. You might come out $10,000, $15,000 between all your doctor's appointments and labor and delivery. And if your child has an issue, it might not be covered as well. So these are things that you need to look in ahead of time. The other main area is property taxes or property insurance. This is going to be for things like your house, your car, if you have a boat or any other kind of thing. Anytime you have a big piece of property and you can't afford to lose it, you want to make sure you have adequate insurance. Most states require you to have a certain amount of car insurance. But it might be only a couple dollars more to double the amount of insurance that you really need. So you want to make sure you have adequate insurance. The same thing goes for a house. For most of you, you have a mortgage on your house. They're going to require you to have a certain amount of insurance so it covers the lender. But for some of you, you might want to make sure that you have enough insurance for things like inside, if you have furniture, if you have special furniture or special type of jewelry. A lot of times your wedding ring is included in your homeowner's insurance, but you might want to double check that because every insurance policy is written differently. So just make sure you know what you have and know what you need. So there's a lot to discuss about insurance, and there's a lot of different insurance, especially health insurance, is one of the few things that varies state by state. So you might talk to someone who lives in another state and they could be paying half the amount of insurance for better coverage. It varies state to state, so you need to know what your states are, what the different options are, and make sure you can make the best choices. So that's why I know there's a lot of information, but I would keep this module for later if you ever have to make choices on what type of insurance, and then just contact your local insurance company if you have an insurance agent that you use.